Some yellow cards, a couple issued to both clubs. But other than that, a back and forth championship final so far, as we are just 1 minute into this second half of this championship final. If it stays at 0-0, or even if both teams score 1-1, as Croatia has a chance in the box now. Ball back in, shot, scores! Oscar Cordon! This game is over from Warrior Field in Waterloo, Ontario, the home of the University of Waterloo Warriors. The final whistle has been blown, and Toronto, Croatia are your 2015 Canadian Soccer League First Division champions.
Turned over though, another chance. Whiteman, the delivery, and it's a cracking strike from the Vaughan striker, and he equalizes here in the 39th minute. The leading scorer, Jarek Whiteman, adds to his tally, and that's number 18, and equalizes this match. It's 1-1. Amato, up. Can Whiteman counter? He can. Whiteman, he wins the ball. He's on a breakaway here. The strike! Into the corner it goes, and the Azzurri's leading scorer gets the equalizer once again, and it's all tied up 2-2 in the 57th minute. Jarek Whiteman with number 19 on the season and his second of the match. The Chiara now with the delivery, back post, the header back in. The Azzurri with the chance. Into the box and in the back of the net! And it's number 3 for Jarek Whiteman. The hat-trick converted, 3-2 in the 60th minute.
You're watching and listening to Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk, Footy Edition with Nicholas Fiore.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 43 and Footy Edition number 6 of Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk. I'm Nicholas Fiore, the host of the show, and joining me is the founder of TFC Republic, John Molinaro. John, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
Absolutely. And obviously you've had so many past experiences in the media world. I just want to touch upon, though, first, TFC Republic, as you can see behind me, the Diana Matheson retirement story for the Canadian women's national team. And obviously TFC finally getting their first win in a while, right? After the firing of Chris Armas, the former head coach of TFC. What is, if people don't know TFC Republic, you founded it, you write articles, but I'd like you to explain it because I, of course, know, but for everyone else watching, of course.
Yeah, it's, I guess I would just describe it as a website, paid website dedicated to in-depth analysis and coverage of all things Toronto FC, plus, Canadian soccer in general, whether it's the Canadian men's and women's teams or the Canadian Premier League. Not so much sort of straight news reporting, but more kind of just analysis, opinions, long form features, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily find at other media outlets. So it's kind of taking a different approach to covering TFC and Canadian soccer.
Absolutely. You've started, you started a while ago in the media landscape with the Sun Media as an online editor, journalist from 99 to 02, then CBC, and you were a journalist for 9 years with the CBC, and then Sportsnet, obviously, where a lot of my viewers and listeners are, tune in for their stuff, either TSN or Sportsnet, of course. You were there 7 years, and then the CPL, the Canadian Premier League, as you can see the scarf behind me. I've had a few CPL players on the show so far, through your experiences so far. What for you has been the most, I guess, thriving experience out of those, I guess, 4 main ones? I'm sure you've done a little side stuff here and there, but those 4 main ones that you really flourished and maybe came out of the shell, sort of say, all right, like I want to do this for basically the rest of my life.
Well, they all had sort of elements of that. I mean, this working at the Sun was a great experience because that was my first job out of journalism school. So I got to really sort of get my feet and wet and, learn about the business and, was mentored by some pretty great people there. The CBC was cool in that, I kind of oversaw, the website's coverage of major tournaments, whether it was like World Cups or Euros. And, the best experience in my professional career was actually being sent to South Africa to cover, the 2010 World Cup, and I was lucky enough to follow, Spain's run through the knockout stages all the way to the final to winning it. So, that was obviously a career highlight and a fantastic experience. And with Sportsnet, I mean, they essentially poached me from CBC because they wanted me to, be their full-time soccer reporter and chief soccer reporter. And so that was something I was always kind of striving to do, when I began my journalism career. So, that was pretty special because so few people in this country actually make a living as, full-time soccer reporters or media members. So to be one of the few was pretty inspiring. And then, the CPL was interesting, even though I wasn't there all that long, because it's a new upstart league, and, it's getting on the ground floor of something that's, was badly needed in this country. So they all sort of had elements of, being important in different parts.
For sure, for sure. You went to school at York and Sheridan here in within the GTA. Did those schools, because some people I've noticed, I know for me, I went to Humber College for media foundations and radio broadcasting, and it's propelled me to, do what I'm doing now at the level that I'm at. Obviously, I want to get to, you one day, or, so many more others one day, right? Levels anyways. But did those schools help you to get to where you are now, you think, and find that foundation?
I think so. I mean, when I was at York, I was there for 4 years. And so, I think it sort of provided me a good, as you said, foundation just sort of changing my worldview, being around people who I grew up in Burlington, which is, quite different from York and Northern Toronto. And so just being around, people who I wouldn't necessarily have grown up with in Burlington, was, a pretty cool experience. And it's, as I said, it sort of broadened my horizons and changed my worldview and outlook a little bit. And, Sheridan was a great experience because we really hit the ground running with their journalism sort of program, right? You really there was a lot to learn in a short period of time, and you were dealing with, professionals who were actually in the business who were teaching this. So that was, for me, such a great experience. And so I think they both had an element of, helping me get to where I am today. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. Your past jobs obviously usually would lead to some connections, right? And form bridges and form relationships. And obviously, you've done that through the years. It's a pretty wide question and a cliche question, I guess, but how truly important is making these connections to then open up lanes and avenues for you in the broadcasting industry?
Well, I would suggest they're pretty important. I mean, I've been lucky enough in that, everywhere I've been, I've formed good sort of relationships with people, so that when I did move on, there was never any sort of bitterness on my part or on their part. And I've, kept in touch with a lot of them. And then sometimes it's led to other gigs or other jobs. And so, it's a very small community when you really think about it, talking about Canadian journalism and media. And, people talk to each other. And if you have like a bad experience at one place and you're the root problem, then people are going to hear about it. And that might sort of lead to less opportunities. So, I've always tried to, conduct myself as professionally and as straightforward as I can. And I think people have appreciated that. And it's helped me build up a network of contacts that have led to other things. So I would suggest that's vitally important.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. You're with Sportsnet after leaving the CBC for 9 years, and you go to Sportsnet for 7 years, from 2011 to 2019. Is it safe to say that Sportsnet really, like, that was in a way kind of the dream job, and it was tough kind of leaving when it was time?
Yeah, I mean, as I said kind of previously, I mean, I always, when I began my journalism career, and even before that, I always wanted to cover soccer on a full-time basis because it's what I'm incredibly passionate about since I was a kid. So, when Sportsnet approached me in 2011, I was working at the CBC, and I was covering soccer, but I was doing other things as well. It wasn't exclusively soccer. So when Sportsnet said, well, we'd like to, hire you as our full-time chief soccer reporter and oversee, our soccer coverage, my eyes opened up pretty wide because that's what I had been waiting for a long time. And so it was, very much a dream job. And, I have to give a lot of credit to Sportsnet because, they let me get on with the job without too much interference, right? I mean, there was some sort of oversight, but they showed a great deal of trust in me to sort of do my thing and really, just sort of shape the coverage of the game on their website. So that was, I'll always be eternally grateful for that. When I left in 2019, it wasn't my own choice, obviously. It was because of budget cuts, so I was let go. But again, just because of the way they dealt me through the previous, whatever it was, 7 or 8 years, there was no hard feelings on my part because they always dealt with me with a great deal of respect. And I'll always be eternally grateful for everything that they did for me.
Absolutely. You've been on the TFC beat since the beginning, right? Since 2007. And how cool, I guess, I don't know if you feel this, but how cool is it? Yes, unfortunately you were let go by a big company in Sportsnet, but you still had, the connections and the pedigree to still cover TFC in your own and on your own platform and, be involved in the maybe pre and post game interviews and questionnaires and stuff like that. Do you feel some sort of honor or humbleness that you say, wow, okay, I'm not with them anymore, but I still get to be a part in what I love doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, covering TFC has been, something has been a career highlight for me and something I take a great deal of joy and pleasure in. You could offer me the possibility of covering like the Leafs or the Raptors or the Jays, instead, and I wouldn't do it. There's no other team I want to sort of cover in Toronto but TFC. And it's not because I'm a fan of the club. It's just, for me, it's just one of the best beats because it's such a unique team. It's such a unique product. And I think we have better access to the players than, some of my colleagues do with regards to covering some of the other team sports. And I just think there's great stories to tell. So that's why I've always taken a great deal of pride and pleasure in covering TFC, because I think it's unlike any other beat in Toronto sports.
You know what? You're right about that, because a couple years ago when TFC2 was at the Ontario Soccer Association, the Ontario Soccer Center, I had an opportunity. I did some coverage of the media as well, between two benches, and then post game and do, the post game questions live in person there. And it's true. The access for TFC, I feel like, and MLS in general is a little bit more lenient, let's just say, than an NHL, NBA, or MLB for sure. So that is true. That's for sure. Would you ever want to get back with a big company like a TSN, a Sportsnet, a One Soccer, even just get back in that fold and in that mix one day? Or you're pretty content, and satisfied with what you're doing and the passion that you're putting your writing in right now?
As you said, I mean, I'm really happy with what I'm doing right now. I mean, I get to be my own boss and set my own hours and do my own thing. Yeah. And it's, fantastic. I mean, I'm really sort of getting a lot of enjoyment out of, not having to answer to anyone. So that's fantastic. But at the same time, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of going to Sportsnet, and I'm still doing some freelance writing for them now on a pretty regular basis. So I have that relationship with them. And, I know a lot of people at One Soccer at TSN. So, it might be something I explore in sometime in the future. And if, those companies ever reached out to me and they wanted to have a discussion, it certainly would be something I'd be amenable to doing. But as for now, like I said, I'm over the moon and ecstatic with what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Well, I had Kristen Jack on, former TSN, TFC analyst reporter too, on the show. And, obviously One Soccer approached him and now he's with One Soccer. When I had him on, he didn't know where he was going yet because it was in the mix, but same for you, right? It's if the opportunities are arising and they're coming up, maybe it's a discussion, right? And then you'll never know for sure. Let's move on a little bit to Toronto FC in itself, John. And obviously, you cover Canadian men's national team, women's national team, and a bit of CPL as well. But your main focus, let's be honest, is Toronto FC, right? And it's all about TFC. And last game, I believe I even heard you on the post game, asking a question on the post game press conferences with the teams, with the players and the staff members. And, you see this change at Toronto FC. I mean, from my T-shirt here, I have all the historic things at the back of the at the back of the T-shirt, right, on what they did, the treble season.
Right.
Can they? Very simple question, and before diving in more deeply, but can they get back to that? when do you think they could get back to that? Because in my opinion, I'd look at the starting 11 on what it could be without Gold Cup, without injuries, right? Just a big starting 11, an MLS Cup final starting 11. Biased or not from me or from you, I think TFC could be there, but that's just my opinion. What do you think?
I think they've dug themselves an enormous hole from which they have to climb out of.
Yeah.
And they're about to lose, 5 players for Gold Cup duty over the next month. The loss of Jonathan Osorio and Richie Larea and Kamara Lawrence, I would suggest, and Ayo Akinola are pretty big blows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at it realistically, you figure that they're going to have to, reach, 40 points at least, at the very least, to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's a tall order with where they are right now. I mean, that's a very big lift, a very big ask. And, I appreciate that the game against New England was, much needed 3 points, and the team looked far more better under Javier Perez than it did under Chris Armas. But, I really legitimately can't see how they can make up this ground. I think the season is too far gone to go on some kind of magical run to get them into the playoff race. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I think they certainly have the talent to do it, to turn this around. But I just wonder if there's even enough time, and which sounds kind of crazy because there's 22, 23 games left in the season. But when you think about it realistically, they're going to probably have to win, 11, 12 of those games to have a shot.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that they can do it.
Absolutely. And obviously the Chris Armas firing, came to really no one's surprise after a 7-1 thumping last weekend. Didn't look pretty, didn't look good. Michael Bradley a couple times this season said, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry to everyone. And professional players, yeah, you could say they have to do that, but I mean, they kind of don't have to say that. They can just say, we're trying to turn it around. We're trying to get it together. But pleading to the fan base that we're sorry. I'm sorry that this is happening. And then he goes on saying, well, Chris Armas, he didn't really have a chance from the beginning, no faults of his own. What did that mean for in your perspective? Should he basically never gotten hired from the beginning?
Well, when he was asked that, he prefaced that. I mean, the part that came before that, he was talking about, how the club has been in a tough way the past 18 months, even with Greg Vanney, just because of the COVID situation and not being based in Toronto and, having to play all their games essentially, in the United States. They haven't played a home game in over a year now or whatever it is. So it was in reference to that, how that, being away from home and the COVID situation and all the stuff that has gone on behind the scenes has really played a part in, putting this club behind the 8 ball to begin with. So that's what essentially he was talking about. That said, I think it's pretty clear that Chris Armas shouldn't have been hired in the first place. And, I never quite understood, what the rationale was behind him sort of changing the tactical approach of the club in such a big way, taking it from, a deliberate possession-based style under Vanney to playing a more high press, high energy system under Chris Armas. It didn't surprise me that he wanted to play because that's the way New York Red Bulls played when he was coach and when Ali Curtis was there as the GM. So, but still, it never sort of made sense to me why you would sort of, it came across to me as finding a solution to a problem that wasn't there. And I do think, so that was sort of bad enough, but then, I think Ali Curtis and Bill Manning bear some responsibility here because they knew full well that this was what he wanted to do, because he would have outlined his tactical vision in the interview process when he was being, considered as a candidate for the job. But then they didn't sort of go out and kind of give him the pieces to pull this off. I mean, this was still a team built in the Vanney mode, built to play, the style of play that Greg sort of endorsed, not one to play the way that Chris Armas was. So I think, in that sense, he was kind of doomed to begin with from the start. Although, as I said, I mean, why they would have changed styles to play this sort of high pressing sort of system is beyond me. I never quite understood the reason behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I seen it. I saw it from afar. I mean, I used to be a TFC season ticket holder. I mean, and then I have a few people, and I know a few people within the organization, just, behind the scenes type of people. And they were talking about the same thing. We don't know, because he was playing that system in New York, and kind of that's how he kind of got fired, because it didn't really work out at the end in a way. And then he came here. So it was definitely, the TFC social media was up in the air, right? To say why. It, I saw some reports too. Would it be a dream, coach Thierry Henry for TFC, and then bring Mario Balotelli in as a striker? Imagine that. Imagine that. I don't know if that would work, John?
Yeah, that doesn't sort of actually scream stability to me.
No.
That's something Toronto could use a bit right now.
No, not at all. Definitely not Mario Balotelli. He's going to Turkey now, so he's been everywhere. Let's just say the Josie Altidore thing, John. Obviously, internal stuff. People are saying now he had stuff with Chris Armas, and under Javier Perez, he might come back, and he's posting again on social media, whatever the heck that means, right? But was there an issue, as much as you can say, as much as you even know, was there an issue with Altidore and a few players, Altidore and Chris Armas, and is he going to be sold? Is he going to be back in the fold? What have you been hearing?
Well, I think it was the issue wasn't, Josie against the players. I think it was just, Josie against Armas. For whatever reason, obviously he didn't like being subbed out of that that game in May against Orlando and let Chris know about it. And, I don't, it sounds to me like it could have been, the whole situation could have been handled much better. And that, I do wonder if this sort of would have blown up as big as it had been, had Greg Vanney been at the helm. So I do think, as I said, I wonder how much Chris Armas could have avoided this thing if he handled it a little bit better. As far as his future is concerned, I do think there is a pathway here for Josie to return.
Yeah,
it seemed like when he was being exiled by TFC, with Armas in tow, that was the issue. The problem between the two was going to lead to his exit, and they were working really hard to figure something out, whether that's sort of trade him or sell him on. Now with Chris gone, it does seem like the possibility is there that he could return, and I think it would be a pretty smooth transition because Josie is well respected and well liked by his teammates. He's viewed as a team leader. He's someone who has really sacrificed and given a lot to the cause since coming to Toronto. And I think he's well sort of respected and adored by the fan base as well. I mean, I appreciate that, he's missed some time over the last couple of seasons due to injury problems, but when you take his sort of total time, take his time at TFC in total and look at it in that way, he's been not only one of the best, but most influential players in TFC history. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's some way that he remains at TFC and he features for Javier Perez in the not so distant future.
But see, then there's also a narrative going around that, like, how some players' times for teams are up, right? Or coaches are, their time is up after so many years. And, the injury bug with Josie Altidore, like, could you see that just, coming into play again and maybe getting the chance or getting injured or Altidore's time up with the club?
Sure. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, there's no question, as I said, that he has had sort of injury issues and problems staying fit and healthy the last few years. And Toronto FC might sort of view that as, this is our opportunity to move him on. I think there are a couple problems here, though. One is they simply can't buy out his contract in season, because if they do that, they don't get any salary cap space. Yeah. And so there's no incentive for them to just simply release him and buy him out of his contract. If they want to do that, in the winter when the season is over, then they get the cap space. That would be one thing.
Yeah.
But I think they view him as an asset, someone that if they do want to move him on, whether it's via trade or, a transfer, they can get something for him. But I do wonder how much, how this sort of tete-a-tete with Armas has sort of poisoned the waters, so to speak, because how willing is a club going to be, willing to spend or bring him in via trade, knowing that they might have the sense that, there's some sort of, attitude issues there because, he got into this sort of feud with Armas. And B, again, his injury issues the last couple of years. I mean, how willing are they going to be to take on a striker who is the wrong side of 30, who has had injury issues at such a high, wage. So I appreciate that, he might want to go, or Toronto FC might see value in moving him on, but I think they're going to have a difficult time moving him on just for those, reasons.
The big question is, especially as an Italian Canadian for me, did TFC, in your opinion, mess up when they let Sebastian Giovinco go?
Well, look, I mean, obviously you want to keep the best player in the league and like their all-time leading scorer, but by all accounts, he wanted to leave. I don't think this was a matter of. There was some blame on both parts. Certainly, I think again they probably could have done a little bit more to have him retain his services. But at the end of the day, Seba wanted to go, and full credit to him. I mean, if you wanted to cash in for a huge mega payday in Saudi Arabia, players' careers are increasingly short, and they got to earn what they can. And if that's what he wanted to do, then God bless him. I don't think anyone sort of bears him any ill will. But I don't think there's any question. I mean, that was, a big loss for Toronto just because he was such a, hugely influential player for them for so long.
It's one of those things where, for example, like the Leafs, right, with Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, like pay the big boys and get them to stay. Why didn't TFC dish out the money, or MLSE dish out the money and say, Sebastian Giovinco, Seba wants this, we're going to give him this because he's our guy. Like, I know he has a house even in Oakville in the offseason right now. Like, he loves this place. And I'll be honest, surprisingly, John, because let me tell you, like a Jermaine Defoe, he hated it, right? So, he absolutely adores this place for whatever reason. And it's a good thing for us because people choose the Miami, the LA Galaxy, the LAFC, right? Those places to just live out there and stay out there in the Miami USA life. But he chose Toronto. He chose Canada. Why didn't TFC just say, here you go, obviously within reason?
I think that's it. I think what they viewed as, what Seba viewed as within reason, MLSE didn't view it as within reason. It was, a pretty substantial pay raise. And again, this was no disrespect to Seba, but this wasn't some 25-year-old player or whatever he was when he came to Toronto. I mean, again, he was in his 30s. So I think the idea of paying him that kind of money when he's, probably would have been his last contract and he's the wrong side of 30. They weren't willing to do that. It would have set a dangerous precedent, because then what's to stop other players from doing the same? And it's, as I said, I just think they were very far apart on money, and, it wasn't going to happen for that.
I think we need to bring him back, John. I think we need to bring him back. One or 2 year deal after the Saudi Arabia contract, right? I mean, he will take less money now. I mean, you would hope, right? You would hope, but who knows? Victor Vasquez came back and went to LA Galaxy with Greg Vanney, right? So, he also didn't like it in Qatar, but that's another story over there. Finally, John, I want to touch upon the women's and the men's programs quickly here. For the women's first, they have the Olympics coming up. They have a pretty, good team. They have a deep team. They got some depth. Christine St. Clair is clearly leading the charge still over there. If her time is coming up shortly, it might be. What do you expect them to do in this upcoming Summer Olympics? Second biggest tournament, in my opinion, in women's football. They throw everything in the kitchen sink in the Olympic tournament, other than the FIFA Women's World Cup, of course, every 4 years. You expect them to do some damage in the Olympics in Tokyo?
I expect them to contend for a medal. Whether they can actually win a medal is another matter entirely. I mean, I think as great as this team is defensively, and it's a sound defensive unit when you're talking about players the caliber of Kadisha Buchanan and Shalina Zadorsky, who have formed a really good pair in the center of defense. And then fullbacks like, Ashley Lawrence, who I think is one of the best, fullbacks in the women's game. Yeah. And so they are a tight defensive unit. I mean, they don't give away many goals. I think they've got 4 clean sheets in 7 games this year. So that bodes well. At the same time, the attack is lacking. They've also been shut out 4 times this year in 7 games. And Christine Sinclair is on, I think it's like a 9-game scoring drought, something like that. And, we've been saying for years that other players have to step up and really sort of lessen the goal scoring burden that rests on her shoulders. And no one has really done that. And so I really wonder where the goals are going to come from, at this tournament. I think if Canada is going to win, sort of get a chance at reaching the medal podium, then it's going to be on the strength of its defense, not on its attack. The defense is really going to sort of be the key. And I'm not sure that'll be enough to win a medal, but, we'll see.
Absolutely. We'll see. And then, there's questions about their goalkeeper situation too. Like, is Stephanie Labbe the real deal? And that's what I've been noticing on social media and stuff like that. But, the attack, they got to score, right? They got to score. So we'll see if that comes to fruition with Janine Becky or, Nichelle Prince and Christine St. Clair trying to get Adriana Leon. They got to put the ball in the net. It's as simple as that because, they got a decent group. And now, you got to try to get out of that, right? That's the thing. For the Gold Cup, for the Canadian men's national team, so much optimism is around this team right now. And I guess that's a good thing, but I think it also could be a bad thing because now the expectation level is high again or higher than what it's used to being with this Canadian men's national team. They have Martinique, Haiti, and obviously USA in their group in the Gold Cup. Top two move on, if I'm not mistaken, with four groups, Group A to D. What are their chances? They don't have a Tipa Hutchinson, Scott Arfield, Jonathan David, and if I'm not mistaken, one more higher caliber.
Milan Borjan is missing.
Milan Borjan, their goalie, right? I said it yesterday and I missed one. So there's your four higher quality higher class guys in bigger leagues, not there. Especially Jonathan David at this time of the style of play. Can Canada get out of that group? Can they really contend for this Gold Cup, even though their likes of Jamaica, USA, Mexico, Costa Rica, Honduras, Panama are in the tournament?
I think so. I mean, I note that, all those absences that you mentioned, and, they're not insignificant, but when you look at it, it's still a very strong side when you're talking about players, the caliber of Alphonso Davies and Kyle Larin, who were coming off, great individual seasons at Bayern Munich and Besiktas. And, a lot of the MLS players, whether it's, Jonathan Osorio or Alistair Johnston of Nashville SC, or Mark Anthony Kaye, who I think is just, dynamic player. I think he's, fantastic. So I think there is enough talent and depth there to definitely get out of the group and go on a run at this tournament. Whether they can or not is another thing because, they haven't really been tested in a long time. When you look at John Herdman's reign, there's only been one game that they won against a higher ranked opponent or what I would consider a top tier team in CONCACAF. And that was when they beat the United States at home, in 2019. And then 2 weeks later, they went down to Florida and got, beat pretty, handily by the Americans. When they competed at the 2019 Gold Cup, they lost to Mexico and they lost to Haiti. And when you look at all their games this year, it's against minnows, it's against Aruba and the Cayman Islands and Dominica. It's not against anyone that I would consider, a CONCACAF heavyweight. So they haven't had the chance to play that many top tier games in the last 2 or 3 years, but when they did, they haven't all done that well. This is going to be a serious test for them. I think it's going to give us a good barometer of just how good this Canadian team is and where they stand. And it might give us some insight into how the team is, going to move forward with, the World Cup qualifiers, resuming in September. So I think it's a big test for Canada. I like the fact that, John has fielded, a pretty strong side because there was some sort of belief that, maybe he might field an experimental team and give a lot of young players the chance, but he's clearly going for it, which I think is good. I mean, I think it's, there should be expectations on this team. There should be expectations that it can compete and do well and go for it. And so I think that's positive. And, as I said, I think it just bodes well for, the World Cup qualifiers in September because it allows the team to stay together a bit more and build some chemistry. So it's going to be an interesting tournament for Canada, I think.
I think they're just lucky that Bayern Munich is letting Alphonso Davies take part, to be completely honest. I mean, you already lost Jonathan David. Imagine losing Davies to, that attack, that flank, right? As well. But will the narrative come into play, John, if, they don't do well or they don't even get out of the group or maybe bail out right after the group stage? You didn't have these 4 or 5 bigger guys there. Like, will that be a narrative, or never mind the excuses? You still got a pretty good team. You got good striker depth in Lucas Cavallini, who I had on my show, with Kyle Larin as well. Like, there's guys there that can still get the job done.
Yeah, I don't think that narrative will come into place. And if it does, then I think it'll be, completely misguided and false, because there is enough talent there. I mean, I appreciate that Jonathan David has been lights out for Canada and is could be like the leading scorer for the national program within, eventually it's going to happen just because he's on a tear. But this idea that they're missing key guys and that sort of somewhat excuse a poor performance in the Gold Cup, I wouldn't buy that. Again, there's more than enough talent there and more than enough depth that they should be able to compete. Well,
they're starting keeper too, right? So let's hope it's not that narrative, because it might come into play. But I think it, like I said, the optimism looks good. I mean, I'm watching qualifiers like crazy now, right? On this TV here against Haiti and against all these other, let's just say minnows in the CONCACAF structure. But it's good to see that John Herdman, although it was a shock leaving the women's program, to be honest, a few years ago, in my opinion, but took over this men's team, and it just looks better. They're going to be in a World Cup no matter what, it seems like, in 2026, but just to see them progressing decently will be all right. I mean, an Italy versus Canada World Cup game in Toronto, if that's ever happens, I'm buying ticket. I'm buying a whole box right away. That's for sure. So we'll see what happens. Listen, John, I really do appreciate coming on. Guys like yourself, players, media people. I mean, I've had a lot of people that I reached out to, few that said no, but a lot of people that said yeah, and they're, within their busy schedule. And I guess it just bodes to the professionalism and the respect level of guys that are at your level, women and men and female, right? Giving myself an opportunity because I'd want to come up in the ranks in the hockey, soccer, basketball world, and I'm doing it now. What I love, play-by-play with hockey in Junior A, but keep on getting up and keep on having my own podcast and stuff like that. So I truly do appreciate you coming on. It means a lot, and best of luck in the future. And let's go TFC and Forza Italia, by the way, as well.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. I was happy to come on, and best of luck to you in your future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Quick prediction, Italy or England? Who you got?
I think England is going to win 1-0 just because I think, home field advantage is going to be huge. And, I do like the way England is playing. Don't get me wrong. I think they've been, pretty solid throughout this tournament. So I think they'll just eke it out.
I'm going to go 2-1 Italy because I can't go against my Italians. I can't do it.
Fair enough.
No, but like I said, I appreciate you coming on. It does mean a lot, and best of luck, obviously, moving forward. Listen, everybody, this is John Molinaro, founder of TFC Republic, covering all TFC, all Canada soccer, really, in general. I'm Nicholas Fiore, the host of Mamma Mia. This is Fire Talk and play-by-play broadcaster for the Oakville Blades. Follow on all social media platforms. Listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Watch on YouTube. This was episode number 43 and Footy edition number 6 of Mamma Mia. This is Fire Talk. Stay safe, everybody, and Mamma Mia.
Lopez turns it over, and now Cavallini with it. Cavallini finds Baker. Albanese comes out. Baker gets to it first. Around the keeper and in the back of the net. Blows the whistle. The captain, Dylan Carrero, for Woodbridge. The penalty kick. Steps up and takes it neatly so with a great, brilliant penalty kick strike into the corner. The ref blows the whistle. Whiteman steps forward, looking, and right down the middle with the strike there and the penalty kick in the 19th minute. Anything coming, now a chance for Jason Mills. He comes in, the shot on goal, off the woodwork again, the rebound comes out, to Mills again, shot scores! Oh my word, number 11 with the finish, and that's Brandon Mills. Oakville looking to play long instead of building up. It's going to favor them off the second ball. A chance for the Blue Devils. Can they get anything on goal? Goes back outside looking for the offside call. It's not. Now cross back in, back door. It's a goal! And the Blue Devils are on the door first. Push back with good defensive play from North Mississauga, and they steal it and now look at the counter. Can the Panthers go? It's 4v4. Good pace. Botello plays on the far side. They stay on side. North Miss an opportunity. They come on the break with a shot. In the back of the net it goes, and North Miss have one back. Continues with a North Mississauga free kick in midfield.
An opportunity here. Shot comes in the back of the net. It goes. Oh my word! What a strike! Now back, kicked up in the air. One with the header. Placed down. McNamara has the opportunity, and in the back of the net it goes. Corner kick now for Oakville. It's a dangerous one, and in the back of the net again, and it's McNamara.
That was Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk Footy Edition with Nicholas Fiore. Thank you for watching and listening, and stay tuned for the next episode.